Okay. So can everybody see my screen? Okay, I assume you can. Somebody can tell me if you can't.
We could see it. Not currently. It was showing before.
Oh, okay. Let me try again. Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Right, brilliant. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, so my presentation is going to be about the Islamic Educator Learning Community Platform, which is hosting this current workshop. And I want to talk to you more broadly about what we're doing initially so that you begin to understand the context of what the role of these workshops and the role of the conference and the future planning that we're doing. So that's the idea behind this presentation. So the background to this is that in 2022 and this current year, as part of my work at the University of Cambridge Faculty of Education, I convened the Cambridge Dialogues Project, which is rethinking Islamic education for the 21st century, research into practice. And this involves a group of academics, researchers, people with theological background, who have also worked in K-12 schooling spaces, formally or informally. And we came together to ask some fundamental questions and to look at how we can move this field forward, both not just in research, but in terms of practice. So this is the work that was being done sort of to underpin the work we're now doing in the Islamic Educator Learning Community, where we're now engaging teachers and looking at teacher professional development. As part of this project, Dr. Shoaib got in touch with me and he said he wanted to do Islam Science and Education conference. And I thought, well, this fits very neatly with what we're doing under Cambridge Dialogue. So we are hosting, as the Faculty of Education, University of Cambridge is hosting an academic conference on Islam Science and Education on the 16th to the 18th of June. However, one of the things that you may not be aware of, but teacher professional development and teacher in classroom inquiry, action research, practitioner inquiry, whatever term you want to use, is an increasing aspect of the work that we're doing in the Faculty of Education. So a lot of the work we now do, we bring together academic conferences with teachers, and that's what this conference is going to be within that ethos. We want teachers to attend. We want them to present, we want them to engage. And for that to happen, we thought, well, what do we need to make that happen? And that's where the ideas behind this series of workshops came about. So we're having 4 workshops at different times so that they're targeted at different time zones because we're looking for an international audience. This conference will entirely be online and the workshops will entirely be online. So coming back to the Islamic Educator Learning Community, I want to talk a little bit more about that so that you can understand how we're translating research into practice and how this is the community is a bridge. It's not a one-way process, it's a two-way process. It's actually part of, I'll talk a little bit about CAMTRE, the Cambridge Teacher Research Exchange, which is part of something called the Bridge, which is an initiative of Hughes Hall College in the University of Cambridge. So IELC is a new learning community of Islamic educators for anyone working with or teaching Muslim learners aged from 3 to 18 years, sometimes called K-12, including homeschoolers or parents who are actively engaged in educating. IELC is an online research exchange platform. It's hosted by CAMTRE, which is the Cambridge Teacher Research Exchange, which is doing this same kind of work that I will now go on to describe, but in a broader capacity. So we are a domain, a community within a community. And it's designed to facilitate exchange between, we have a 3-way nexus, Islamic scholarship, so the theological discussions we were just having previously in this workshop, educational research, and Islamic schools and Islamic educators. So we're not just interfacing with schools, we're interfacing directly with educators and teachers. IELTS supports teachers and educators to engage in reflective practice. As a bare minimum, we are a community of reflective practitioners, people who are working and to continuously improve what we're doing. But we want to also move towards teachers who are conducting their own classroom research inquiries in order to improve learning. And I'll talk a bit about this a little bit more, but a core pillar of what we do is that educators will then share their inquiries via the CAMTRE library. And then we will draw on the wider content of CAMTRE, especially the inquiries we've shared, to provide our own context-specific platform and content. Okay, so as I said, this is a bridge, it's a two-way process. The IELTS vision is Islamic schools and educators contributing to a growing knowledge base of pedagogical theory, pedagogical innovations which are drawn from Islamic educational theory and values. So it's not just, I'm a Muslim, I thought I'd do a practitioner inquiry on something. It's, I'm a Muslim, or I'm teaching Muslim learners, and I want to do a practitioner inquiry on something, but that will be within an Islamic paradigm, an Islamic worldview. And I will draw on Islamic educational theory and values to do that, to do what I'm changing. So Islam, science and education fits very neatly into that. The idea is that eventually we will inform policy and practice to improve both character development. So we're talking about human personhood, because that is a core aim of Islamic education, but also education and learning for all. So this again speaks to what we were previously discussing, that educators, essentially, we are building Muslims, so we have to have the core knowledge and tools of how to build them as people, as human beings, and as Muslims, which involves character, and that it has to be interwoven with the learning that they are engaging in. And we're particularly interested in supporting the most vulnerable and disadvantaged, and we believe that the platform needs to be accessible to people who may not be able to access kind of high quality research that you have in universities like Cambridge and elsewhere. We're trying to build a growing global community of active educators and school leaders sharing their classroom research to improve Islamic educational curricula, pedagogy, and practices in classrooms worldwide. We know the desperate need for this, so we're going to try and leverage this collaborative, communitarian approach to try and work on this together, taking shura from each other as we proceed. So the next one, so what services are we offering? We're currently offering free asynchronous online courses. So our first series of courses is in operation as of last year, and we will be designing further courses. So currently you're still welcome to join if you haven't already joined. Looking at the prophetic pedagogy of dialogic halakha, we have course 1A, which has began last week, and course 1B, which is for people who already completed course 1A on that. We're planning further courses on play, on holistic education, art and design, and Islam, science and education, all drawing from the Islamic tradition, where we will support educators who want to conduct their own classroom inquiry in groups. We can facilitate that. We are offering resources where you can share your educational resources, but we will also share the kind of good practice that we are seeing elsewhere. We have a blog and a discussion forum. Each course has its own discussion forum, and the discussions there can become quite vibrant. We do have a generic discussion forum which hasn't really got going, but one of the things we're thinking about doing is introducing specific threads like Islam and science, so you may want to engage with that. And access to the Camtree library where you can share your inquiries. So currently access is free. We're hoping to extend that for as long as possible, inshallah, pending ongoing funding. Okay. Now, this is just an interface for the course, just for you to understand what it would look like. So it's a 6-week course. The commitment is 2 to 3 hours a week. As I said, it's currently completely free. So our first course is using halakha to develop shakhsiyya Islamiyya. So it's about dialogic halakha, looking at Islamic dialogue, dialogic practices. And you have 6 weeks. We look at 2 beginnings, 2 learners, understanding shakhsiyya Islamiyya, dialogic halakha and Hadith Jibreel, developing Nia and ground rules, developing high quality communicative dialogue in halakha, and there's a final reflective report. Course 1B begins to give you the tools to start conducting inquiry about halakha practices if you're engaging in them. But you would need to complete course 1A first, otherwise you would not know, you would need that foundation to move on. As I said, we've got further courses in development, and I'm not going to go through that. You can just have a quick look. Coming on to the Camtree library. So Cambridge Teacher Research Exchange is already hosting a library, and I'll show you an example of teacher classroom research. It's still in its infancy as well. It's been, IELTS and Camtree have kind of, we started not long after they did. But they have a range of supportive resources to help you publish your inquiries. And we haven't yet developed our own version of those, which we aim to do to incorporate the Islamic dimension. But those resources are very useful for anybody who's interested in carrying out a classroom inquiry. They also offer a report template, and they will offer a peer review process, which you will then be able to use to publish your report in their library. And we will have a dedicated space within the library. So your report would go on the IELTS space, but also be available more widely in the Cambridge Country Library. So why do I keep talking about these inquiries and these reports? The idea we have is that we are leveraging the workshops and the conference to sort of get this momentum going, to get science teachers working in Islamic contexts, or any other teacher or any other educator, to start conducting these inquiries and presenting these and publishing. So the Islam Science and Education Conference will have a dedicated space for teacher inquiry presentations. We are encouraging you to submit an abstract. The deadline for that is 31st of March, so you have plenty of time. And all that is for the moment is a Google form which asks you to sort of give a very short description of an inquiry you might have conducted already, or something that you're planning to do. This will be peer reviewed, as in we will look at that and invite. It won't be everybody. You would need to meet the criteria that of things or whatever we're looking for, but we would invite you then to present at the online conference. But we're not looking at this in an academic criteria. We're applying a teacher inquiry criteria to this. And then after you've presented at the conference, we will give you feedback and support to publish in the IELTS section of the Country Library. And your inquiry will then feed back into this emerging field. So the questions that we're raising here now about, for example, what kinds of theological knowledge do teachers need to have to be able to answer questions effectively in the science classroom? You might want to look at a question that's been raised in your science classroom and think about, okay, what aspect do I need to go and look at? And then you can come back and say, well, I went and looked at this. I then did this with my learners. This is then what happened. And I will write a little report on that. It's as simple as that. It's nothing major. It's simply a case of anything that you're doing, any little intervention, recording the context of it, why you did it, how you went about it, and then what happened, the outcome. And as I said, this will then feed back into this emerging field. All the learning that we will gain from these workshops, from this, if anybody's doing any of these practitioner inquiries, or the conference, will then feed onto courses on Islam Science and Education that we've already planned, that we will be on the IELTS platform, and we're hoping to get funding. We already put funding in for that, to enable those to be developed and to be on the platform for free, at least for a couple of years, hopefully longer, starting in 2024. So I just want to draw your attention to, if you haven't already seen this, we have issued this call for papers for Islam Science and Education. You may not be able to see this at the bottom of my screen, but it says we also welcome practitioner inquiry-based submissions from teachers or other educators, which will be reviewed by other practitioners. The organizers of the conference are committed to knowledge exchange between scholars, researchers, and educators working in schools or communities. So please go ahead and have a look at this. It will give you the criteria, what we're looking for, and the link to the Google form to submit your abstract. This is just in the screenshot from the Country Digital Library. So you can see here that this teacher, their inquiry that they did was, I like knowing how it all fits together, creating desirable difficulties in the physics lab. And this is just a generic science inquiry. There's an abstract there. If you go onto the Country Library, which I can put the links in the chat, or if Osama or anybody else could put the links in the chat, that'd be really helpful. You can then go in and have a look at how these reports operate and what resources are available to you. But I just thought I'd show you what it looks like on the screen. Okay, so finally, IELTS is open for registrations. To access the courses and to be able to engage with us, you do need to register. Well, that's simply creating a login, email address, and your name. That's all. We do send out regular newsletters. You can have access to free online courses, access and share resources. There's a dedicated discussion forum. It gives you access into the Country Library, and it gives you access to the Country facilities as well as IELTS, because we are part of Country. Yeah, follow us on social media to find out more, and do sign up. And I think that's everything. So I will stop sharing there. I do want to say that Dr. Fuller's presentation, which will follow mine,
That's okay. Now I can see it. Sorry. So, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اتبع أثرهم إلى يوم الدين. We are talking about Islam and science, and my session is about classroom inquiry, and the goal of it, or the objective of it, the main, is about to encourage thinking, reflective thinking. So